being here today.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Richard Koenig. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Opportunity Development Corporation. Welcome to my service area. How does it feel? HODC is a north suburban nonprofit affordable housing developer. We do North Shore affordable housing. Oxymoron, anyone? So the organization was founded in 1983. Formerly, we were the Interfaith Housing Development Corporation. We were part of the Fair Housing Movement, where our sister organization, the Interfaith Housing Center, now Open Communities, worked on fair housing work and tried to address ways to make the northern suburbs of Chicagoland more inclusive and allow people of all incomes, races, ethnicities, creeds to live together in a community. So our organization is community-based, and this is the heart of our service area. Our first buildings ever done were here in Skokie, and we've done properties throughout the suburbs and continuing to expand around the Chicagoland area. But our mission is really to develop, to create, to expand, and manage housing that's affordable for lower-income people throughout the northern suburbs. So far, we've successfully developed 21 units with over 300 units. We're in 8 different communities throughout the northern suburbs, and we've done a variety of types of units that we've developed. We've done some rental housing. We've done a little bit of for-sale housing, nothing as exciting as the previous presentation, but have been able to do some condominiums. But most of what we do right now is rental housing. We have done some rehabilitation of existing buildings, as well as some new construction. Everything as small as 1 unit and up to 100 units. So really diverse groups of types of buildings, but most of our buildings, because if you're familiar with the northern suburbs, most of the buildings are smaller that we do. You can't do a large project. There aren't a lot of large open spaces available. So doing infill housing, doing smaller sites really is what our niche is. Our units have focused on the 3 main populations within the affordable housing world: senior housing, family housing, and housing for people with disabilities. And about 1/3 of our stock falls in each of those categories based on building sizes, building types, development types throughout the area. But we've done developments on our own as well as in partnership with other organizations, other nonprofit organizations like CAF, other for-profit organizations. We have a partner here from, we're working on a development right now with Up Development. We love our for-profit development partners because they pay for everything. They do all the work, they pay for everything, and I get all the glory. That's my new business model. And it seems to work pretty well for us. So in addition to doing all the development work, we also do our own property management. I realized one day that if we were going to build them, people were actually going to live there. So most of my staff now does property management, and that's a big part of what we do, having property managers, maintenance people, folks that help us continue to make sure our properties are up and running. And so we don't get bored, we also do home buyer counseling and help people that are potentially may be foreclosed on. We continue to do work like that as a HUD certified housing counseling agency, just to keep us busy enough. I've been the executive director since 1997. And most of my staff have been with me more than 5 years. Apparently we do a good job retaining the staff that work with us, but everyone is so passionate about the work that we do. Our board members live throughout the community that we're operating in right now, and they're people that are interested in supporting our mission and trying to find ways to create inroads, to find new ways to create affordable housing. And they've really given us a mission of trying to find any way that we can to create new housing units. And every project that we have has a story, and I'll show you some pictures of the types of developments that we've done. But we really believe in doing more supportive housing. It's kind of the buzzword now. The state of Illinois has funding programs for affordable housing, but they really are targeting also additional units for supportive housing and have certain rounds that are available to provide financing to do affordable housing developments that are for people with disabilities. And we really believe in that without basic shelter, you can't address the other issues that you have to deal with. So we do the housing piece of that. And I think we're successful because we link up with social service agencies that do what they do well. They provide that case management, they provide those supportive services, but we do the real estate piece. By doing that, we think that we can create stable living environments for people. And we recognize that in Illinois, there's an environment now because of the consent decrees, because of Olmstead, those things that are happening, funds are available. But the rules aren't very well defined. When the state of Illinois decided to close down some of the large institutions, they sort of struggled for a few years on what that meant. And then all of a sudden, one day, someone realized there's a state housing agency. They should fix that problem. So the state housing agency didn't have any idea what supportive housing meant. So they're trying to find ways to make supportive housing available for people, make money available to do housing for people with disabilities without really knowing what that meant. And so we've been trying to be able to access those resources and find ways, because the system isn't set up to create housing for people that we want to serve. You have to understand that fundamentally it's not a system that's created to help people. So we're trying to find, so we know what the rules are on how to create affordable housing, and so we're breaking those rules or modifying those rules just a little bit to make sure that we serve the populations we're trying to serve. So for us, permanent supportive housing means it's available and affordable to the person who lives there. So, supportive services help create self-sufficiency, and you've heard from so many great providers that are doing those things that help increase that level of self-sufficiency, and I've learned a ton. I want to try and figure out how to integrate what folks that have spoken earlier are doing to create, increase that level of self-sufficiency, but creating that independence. And so we're looking at lots of different types of housing options. What's it mean to create different options that are available? So we're finding that there are a lot of barriers to creating supportive housing, whether the financial barriers, the physical barriers, political barriers of zoning, as you can imagine. Nobody likes anything to develop, and then you want to develop housing that's affordable, and you want to build housing that's affordable and for people with disabilities. Yeah, if you've heard of Not in My Backyard, NIMBY, maybe you've heard of the phrase banana, build absolutely nothing anywhere near anything. That's typical of the northern suburbs. So we're trying to overcome the other issue of the technical issues of how do we own the housing and manage the housing and create staffing levels that are sufficient for the people that are living there and just create new options. So there's a lot of ways to do that. The great presentation before us talked about home ownership. For us, it means developing rental housing. That's one of the solutions that we feel that we can contribute to the supportive housing world. We're partnering with family groups. We've got some members here who I've met with. I recognize a lot of faces. I think that's good. We've met together trying to find ways to meet folks where they are, meet families where they are. They have a loved one who needs housing that's available to them and affordable. But there's additional advocacy needed to create more units. So I have a few solutions. So we talked about there's a lot of barriers to creating supportive housing, but some of the solutions are we're just going to go build it anyway and get past those barriers. This is an example of a scattered site project that we did. We bought four flats here in Skokie, happens to be, with some funding that was available from the state specifically for supportive housing. We don't do any of the services. And our current model of linking with social service agencies, we provide the housing, we make it available, we manage the units, but we have such good partnerships with a lot of groups in this room that are already doing that case management work. But I've come to realize recently that our model of making sure that everyone gets the supportive services they need is this. We cross our fingers and we hope that you get all the services you need to stay independent, to stay in your apartment, and we need to move beyond that. So we're trying to find ways to, I've said for years, we're just the property manager. We've got to find ways to be more than just the property manager without providing those services. We can't do the services. We can do the real estate development, but how do we move beyond that, especially scattered sites? It's hard enough for me to manage a 4-flat here and a 4-flat here and a 4-flat here and a 4-flat over here, let alone cover the North Shore and provide those services that people really need. So what did I do? I bought some houses, because that's not nearly hard enough to do a 4-flat. But we have houses, we have townhomes, we have duplexes throughout the area, but by partnering with agencies that provide those services, that can have people on site, they can be our eyes and ears and help us do a better job of managing what those units are. This is a picture of the most recent building that we completed, located over in Glenview. It's a 13-unit affordable supportive housing project. It was originally supposed to be one of the, if those of you familiar with the financing world, the low-income housing tax credit world, there's a couple of you sort of know what that means. It was scheduled to be the smallest tax credit project ever done in Illinois, and then they decided that was really stupid. So they gave me a whole bunch of soft money, some of the money that's available from IDA through HUD, and then the state of Illinois didn't have a budget for a couple years, and when you have money from the state and there's no budget, they don't let you have that money from HUD. So we had to stop building it. So people were without housing for another year because we had to wait until the money became available. The day we opened the waiting list on this 13-unit project, we had 130 people in less than 7 days. Once we reached 10 people per unit, we cut the list off because honestly, I don't want to give people hope. There's already 130, there's 120 people ahead of you. I don't want to give you hope that you're going to get a unit. So as cruel as it sounds, we have to close our waiting lists because we simply have so many people that are interested in moving into our units. This is a brand new building. It's actually two small buildings right next to each other that are similar. The first floor is all at grade, so all the first floor level units are accessible. And all the units up above have a staircase walking up, but then are mirrored exactly on top and on the bottom. There are 8 one-bedrooms, 2 two-bedrooms, and 3 three-bedrooms. So we can have a mix if you want to live on your own, if you want to have a roommate, or if you want to have a family. The 3-bedroom units make that option available. We have a community space that has offices available. If you are a service provider and you have somebody who's living in the building and you don't want to meet necessarily in someone's home, you want to have a little bit of privacy, we have space available, and you get a key card and you can let people in, and we have an office available where you can meet with someone in a private space. If you want to have a party with your family, there's a community room available. If you want to do trainings, there's that type of space available. So there's lots of adaptability, lots of options available. If you can sort of see down here in the corner of this picture, we built an outdoor garden, a raised bed, put some dirt in there, and sort of mentioned to people there was a garden out there. Came back one week at the beginning of the summer and stuff was growing like crazy. The garden is completely full of fresh vegetables that people are able to grow on their own without any encouragement from us at all. That's just, once it was there and once it was made available for people, it's such an amenity. Just a small garden like that really makes a big difference for people. Our soon-to-be newest affordable housing project is located up in Arlington Heights. This was a project that, again, was brought to us by our friends who are for-profit developers. They did all the hard work. They paid for all the costs. They got everything done. And then they told me that they needed the project zoned and somebody needed to stand in front of the city council. Yeah, that was me. There had been some issues with the site before, and so they wanted a different face on this project, so they wanted my face for some reason. So I stood in front of the city council, and at the end of the meeting, I went up to the city council approved the zoning. They were excited to have the project. They were excited to get it all put together. And at the end of the meeting, I walked up to the mayor and said, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for getting this project approved. Thank you for getting it done. And the mayor looked at me and said, don't screw this up. Okay. I now know what I'm up against. I now know that we have, but our goal really is, when we create developments like this, our goal is to create the best housing we can. My goal is to walk someone to a street and say, here's a row of apartment buildings. Find the building that's the affordable housing. Find the building that's the supportive housing. Find the building that you think looks like the affordable one. And our goal is the idea is, it's the best building on the block. And that's property management. That's such an important piece of it. Once we get the building built, we go through the process of zoning. And zoning takes years and years and years and years. I have a project that we're working on right now in a community just north of here. It's taken 3 years just to get the zoning in place. It's going to take another 3 years to get the financing in place, and then another year to build it. So from the day we started the idea to the day someone moves in is a minimum of 7 years. There's a big need for supportive housing, and everyone's going to take 7 years. It's going to take a while to solve this problem, so we need lots of creative solutions. So if you want to see mud and dirt, like they were talking about earlier, this one up in Arlington Heights is now mud and dirt. They dug a hole in the ground. We closed 4 weeks ago. So come up and see our mud and our dirt. But it's going to be a project that hopefully we can be proud of. It's got a community room. It's got a computer lab. It again has offices for staff as well as offices for service providers. It's got a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units, so we've got a range of options available. It's really close to the Spunky Dunkers donut shop. There's a Popeye's Chicken, there's a McDonald's. Not that I'm obsessed with the food options, but we want to be accessible to transportation and all the food. So this is a great location, an example of how you fit it into an existing area and make the housing just looks like an apartment building, right? It doesn't look special, but it's housing that'll create rental units for people that need an affordable, decent place to live. There's a burning question in the back.
What's the address?
It's in Arlington Heights. It's near Dundee and Arlington Heights Road near Buffalo Grove High School. Yep. It's at 120 Bossier. Okay. So go ahead.
This is not open to the public though, right? This is open to organizations that'll be placing children into it?
No, it's open. It'll be open to anybody. When we open the waiting list, we will, like all of our developments, when we open the waiting list, we'll pick a day about 3 months before the building is going to open, and we will send out an email blast to all of our partner agencies and say, get people ready. There's going to be a wait list. It's going to fill up quick. We need people to sign up, get your income documentation together, get your application together. But there's no restrictions on who can apply. It's completely open to the public. We'll need to start marketing it affirmatively in the area but because it's supportive housing and people, whether you don't have to have an agency partner, you can be a family group that has, we have some level of visibility, but it's going to be open to anybody. But it helps when we sort of know who people are and connections are, who partners are.
And again, Richard will be able to do some more questions that you can approach him directly. I'm just concerned with our time frame. So when we wrap here, you'll be able to go over and talk to him and get more information on that.
My question is, what is the AMI requirement for Arlington Place, is it called?
It's Hart's Place.
Yeah, and who do they test? The parents, or, I mean, they must test the parents, or is it the individual?
It's the individual. We have to have an individual adult with a disability. So it is a tax credit project, for those of you familiar with that terminology. So it's the household income is less than 60% of the area median income. And that's pretty much across the board for all of our developments. For a single person, that's about $30,000 a year. For two people, it's maybe $35,000 a year. We have some units that are available for people at 30% of area median income. Those, because that's not much income at all. A lot of those units have a rental assistance, Section 8, the voucher, where they pay 30% of their income. All of the units in this building have vouchers. So the household pays 30% of whatever their income is, and the rest is made up by HUD to make sure that the entire building can operate. We can cash flow and run the building, provide managers and everything else on site that we need to provide.
Thank you so much.
I'm around for questions.
We'll be coming right up to you.
As Ann knows, we love to partner and find creative ways that break the mold, but that we can find new ways, new and creative ways to create housing for the folks that we love.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I'm with Scioto Properties. I got my start 30 years ago as a direct support worker in the field of services to people with disabilities in West Virginia. The state was downsizing large institutions, moving people into the community, and I just finished a psych degree and was starting a master's, and this group home opened near where I lived, and I was interested in what it was about, and so started working direct support, ended up managing the home, the area, the state, etc., and spent most of my career on the provider side. And I think that's one of the unique things about Scioto. Our CEO has a similar story. She spent most of her career on the operations provider side. We've got a couple other folks on the team that have done that. We've got real estate experts, so we combine the real estate expertise and the service delivery and operational expertise. And we're now get to who we are and where we are in just a minute. So since '99, we've been helping provider organizations to acquire and manage their real estate needs. We're a national company and committed to developing and investing in quality housing related healthcare facilities for people with disabilities. Most of our portfolio is in the IDD space, but we do some services in the space of people with traumatic and acquired brain injury, and also some senior housing. So this is just an example of one of the homes that we own. So again, 20 years, we currently are serving approximately 6,200 people. It's now it's right at 1,600 homes in 40 states. And again, just another example of one of our homes. So we do acquire the real estate. We also work with providers on mergers and acquisitions, and we also do some construction, primarily in the space for people with brain injury. And talk a little bit more detail about what we do. So one thing we do is purchase homes right out of the market and either lease directly to the people who receive services, to their family members, or to the provider, just depending on how that is, what the request is, basically. So like, for example, right now we're working with a provider in Illinois. Over the course of this year, we've probably acquired 8 to 10 three-person homes, and that they're providing the services. We do the lease directly with the people who live in the home, and the provider organization serves as a guarantor on that lease. So that's just one example of what we do. We do this for, like I said, this provider that's got operations all over the state. Also this year, a provider in Wisconsin contacted us and said, can you buy a home for us? So we do, large portfolios. We can do a single home. Working right now with a provider in West Virginia, or not really the provider, but a family consortium that's come together, and we've acquired a house for them, and we're finalizing the lease, and folks will be moving in January, so we can work directly with family groups. So we can, like in all of these instances that I just described, it was either the provider or the family that said, hey, we have a house, can you buy it for us and lease back? And sure, we can do that. Other times we've had providers come to us and say, we need this type of house in this general area, can you find it for us? And so we have a back office that can find the house that meets your needs. If it needs to be modified to meet the needs of people living in the home, we can do modifications to homes as well. So it works both ways. Sometimes folks tell us, here's a home, will you buy it and lease to us? Other times they say, here's what we need, kind of where we need it, can you find it and purchase it and lease to us? We're a cash buyer, so you heard, so new construction and doing some of the things that we've talked about today can take a long period of time. This, of course, and being a cash buyer, we can oftentimes turn things around in 45 to 60 days in what we do with purchasing homes out of the market. Supply capital with sale leaseback options. So this probably will mean more to providers in the room. But for example, just this week, before I came here, I met with a provider in Michigan who owns a lot of their homes and then some like day service type buildings, and they're just cash strapped, don't have the capital to grow, want to get more into the supported living market, and so we talked to them about purchasing their homes and leasing back to them. That gives them a large capital infusion to fund now that future growth. So we've seen a lot of that really over the last couple of years. Flat rates, rate cuts in states, providers cash strapped, don't have the capital, and a sale leaseback can oftentimes be a better source of capital than going and borrowing from the bank. So we do that a lot with provider organizations. And then, like I said, we do some construction and development. I think one of the things about SOTA that we pride ourselves in, that we really try to, as you've heard all day today, find out what the customer's needs are, the people living in the home. How does the home need to be modified to meet their needs? What type of lease does the provider or the people who are going to be renting need? We do triple net leases, keeps the lease low, and the provider takes care of taxes, insurance, and maintenance and repairs. We can do modified leases where we can take on some of the maintenance and repairs, the taxes and insurance, and we do combinations of all of those. So we can do different lease structures. We can acquire different types of homes. I'm working right now with an agency that's looking to acquire a provider in Indiana, and they want us to acquire the real estate. So we do a lot of acquisitions with companies where they're acquiring the organization but don't want the real estate. So we purchase the real estate and then lease to them. And in this model, and I'll just give a plug a little bit to my colleagues who were talking about the enabling technology. This guy, the primary part of his portfolio are duplexes, where he has two folks on either side of a structure or upstairs, downstairs structure. And he now has one staff to support those 4 individuals, is using enabling technology to help provide additional support. He's cut his staffing about 30%. This guy, which is unheard of in the IDD industry, does not advertise for staff, and is using that duplex model to really, which is a great model, I think, of providing supports and services using less staff, and then incorporating the enabling technology to even reduce that staff need fuller, or additionally. So we can work with companies who are looking to acquire the program, not the real estate. And we can also, and we've done this a little bit with one of the providers that was here today on the enabling technology, and our discussions with the other, where we can acquire the home, and if you need a larger suite of technology in the home and you want to have us finance it, we can not only purchase the home and lease to you, but we can finance the technology, so there's not an initial financial outlay for it. So we have a customer satisfaction survey we send out to all of our customers every year, and 4.6 out of 5, and that's great, but I think the most important thing is that we do ask our folks, what are we doing well, what do we need to do better, and then we incorporate that into our strategic planning process each year. So this is our footprint, and other than kind of the Northwest, we're just about everywhere. It's not on the map, but we just acquired our first home from a parent who owned the home, and now we're leasing it to a provider in Alaska. And I haven't made it to Hawaii yet, but we are in Alaska. So again, here's just some examples of some of our homes, both inside and outside structure. And that is, I try to go through that as quickly as I could. I know you're a little bit cut on time, so you want to just let them grab me later for questions?
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much.